Welcome to She Says with your host, Stephanie Regalado. She Says guests share stories from their challenges to successes and, most importantly, the journey of womanhood woven alongside the collaboration of sisterhood. From self, love, friends and family, to hot topics, career, and world views, Stephanie and her guests discuss matters with utmost openness and honesty. So let's hear what she says. Here's Stephanie.
Hello and welcome to She Says. I am your host, Stephanie Regalado. I have Cindy Esch with me today. She is the owner, founder, principal extraordinaire of Spark Mindset Coaching. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Another Nabo sister.
Yes.
In the house. It's been a few weeks since I think I've had a Nabo sister in the house. Victoria was here last week, but she's not currently in Nabo. Hard to believe because
she'll be back.
Of course. They always come back.
They always come back.
So you started your coaching business how long ago? Within the last year?
Yeah, a little over a year.
And then you've recently gone through a shift.
Yes. Yeah, I just came back from Brooke Castillo's Life Coach School certification training.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, that's amazing.
It's a long name, too.
It is a long name. Yeah. But really, really amazing. And out of that, I realized that I'm shifting my niche.
Oh, I think a shift is always exciting, probably scary, exciting, but having a niche is very important, and sometimes people don't realize how tiny niches really are.
Oh, boy.
Because you think you have one, and then you're like, you have to dial it down further and further and further.
Further and further.
I've always been curious about this notion of coaches versus mental health professionals and counselors, etc. Why would someone choose a coach versus a counselor or mental health professional?
Well, they might choose both simultaneously if the therapist was for it, or they might do what I did originally, which was to do therapy, which was very beneficial and very helpful. But I found that I still was stuck in my life. I still was getting upset. I still was getting triggered, even though I had done all my work in therapy. And coaching really was transformational. So therapy traditionally has us looking at our past, what happened in our past. Coaching has us looking at our thought work and in the present, how we can transform those thoughts so that we can create the results we really want out in the future. So we're more future focused.
Okay. And when coaching kind of comes under attack for the amount of training coaches go under versus the amount of training mental health professionals go under? I know I didn't warn you about any questions.
No, it's okay.
It's just coming out.
It's good.
How do you respond to that? The notion that someone would be questioning you and your background, knowledge, training to be able to step in and help someone with something so magnificent as their current and future view, etc.
Yeah, that is actually a great question, and I'm actually really glad that you asked it.
You're welcome.
Well, because we've probably all come across those people that we've seen out in through life, and we're just like, what are they doing? They're bouncing from one thing to another thing, and they don't seem to have the success they want. And all of a sudden they show up at a networking event and they go, oh, I'm a life coach. And you're like, yeah, no.
Yes.
No.
I've had one or two of those.
Yeah. And the industry is not regulated. And there is not a certification for everybody. Right. There is a certification program that would like to say that it is, but it's actually not mandated or regulated for everybody. So there's lots of different certification programs out there. What I think is really important when you're looking for a coach to make sure that you're getting someone that's going to serve you, because you're going to really be opening up, bearing your soul, and you want to get tools that are going to move you in the direction you want to go in your life. Right. So I think it's really important to ask what kind of training they've actually had. We just don't want them to wake up one morning and go, oh, I think I'll be a coach, right?
A life experience is
my life experience led me to be able to do this.
A lot of people probably can, but you have to really you still have your own filtering system that you're working through.
Right.
Without proper training that helps broaden your mind to a whole new level or plateau.
And as a coach, we want to be being coached. So I would want to know what kind of training have they had? Are they currently being coached? And who are they being coached by? What kind of training did that person have? Because you want them to come without an agenda. They are there for you. They are there to be completely neutral, completely non-judgmental, to be confidential. They're not there to tell you what to do, not in a life coach situation. Now, I'm not talking about business strategy coaches that really may need to tell people take step 1, step 2, step 3. That's not what I'm talking about. With life coaches, we need to be completely clear, completely neutral, completely non-judgmental. We need to hold the space, and we don't want to get in the pool with them. So when somebody tells me something that they perceive as very traumatic or very horrific, I don't want to go, oh my gosh, that's just so awful. I can see how that was awful for you. And the other thing I don't want to do is when they are finding their inner wisdom and finding their answers, because my job is to hold the space, show them their thinking so that they can see how it is or isn't working for them.
So you're asking questions that are kind of helping unveil certain aspects?
Absolutely. My job is to ask great questions from a place of complete neutrality. And then when my client comes up with whatever they come up with, my job isn't to go, yay, that's great, because now they are going to want to please me.
Oh.
So I just want to be neutral.
Yeah. Hey, I've been in counseling and I've wanted to make my counselor proud.
Yeah.
But that did also help me regulate out in the real world off of the sofa.
Yeah.
Putting yourself in that space where you remember the things that you spoke of and remembered your power that you felt in that moment. So I guess there's a difference there, but I see what you're saying.
Yeah. So if they know that they're coaching, they ask what kind of training they've had, and do they have a certification, and where did they get it? So.
Okay, so your niche now is...
I'm so excited.
It's a strange thing to be excited about, but
but there's...
it's exciting to find where you consider all of the experiences that you've also had in your whole life and why, and make sense of it. So I understand when you can finally wrap all of that together.
Yeah.
Okay.
So my niche is to work with women who are survivors of sexual abuse and who are unhappy in their marriage.
As two separate things, or as one and the same?
Surprisingly, it's one and the same.
Yeah.
There's a saying in life, as we do one thing, we do many things. So what happens, and what happened for me, what I found, because I am a survivor of childhood sexual abuse, and what I found was, even though I did therapy and I really got my head around it and that it wasn't my fault and all of those things, I still had this negative, disempowering thinking. So my thinking was that I programmed into myself as a child was, I'm worse than the dirt underneath people's feet. I'm just going to be abandoned. There's nothing worthy about me. I'm never going to be loved. I'm not lovable. So because those thoughts are like little recordings in our head, and it's running like elevator music in the background of my head, I was always in my marriage looking to justify that. So one of the things I tell people is, this didn't happen once in a while. It happened many days a week. It was my poor husband. So one time he bought a fertilizer spreader, and it wasn't the one that I wanted him to buy. So you would just go, oh, why'd you buy that fertilizer spreader? But from my triggers, looking for evidence about how he wasn't going to love me, I went, boom. I mean, I really exploded. I screamed, I yelled. I used to have a tongue that could slice emotionally people just like the sharpest knife. I'm sad to admit it, but I did. And I just laid him flat. And I said to him, you obviously don't care about my opinion. You don't respect me. If you don't respect me, you don't love me. And if you don't love me, then I don't know why we're married. And on Monday, I'm calling the divorce attorney. And right now, I'm going to call all my friends and family and tell them why you are so awful. That sounds insane now from a different perspective. But in the moment, I was triggered, and to explode felt really good. But when I got a handle on my thinking and realized that I am lovable, that I'm never going to abandon myself, and that I will keep myself safe, I can do that from a place of empowerment. And so this same man that I was ready to divorce, he's the most wonderful man on the face of the planet. And I don't care what fertilizer spreader he buys.
What did it take for you to have that shift, though?
It actually took mindset work. I was in a program, and the person leading the program said about survivors of childhood sexual abuse, that's a terrible thing, and it shouldn't have happened to them, but they are responsible for what's happening to them now. And I took such huge issue with that. I went, no!
Yeah.
And so he asked me how old I was when I was first abused. I was 3. How old was I when it stopped? I was 18. Yeah. He asked how often it went on each week and how long each incident lasted. And then he did math as I'm crying my eyes out, right?
Yeah.
And then he asked me how old I was at the time. And he took the math he did while the abuse went on equaled the number of years of total abuse if it had just been laid side by side. Okay, or end to end. And then he took my age when it stopped at 18 on to how old I was at the time. And he said, this is the amount of time that you were sexually abused. This is the amount of time that has passed that with your thinking, you are continuing to abuse and victimize yourself with your thinking. And I got it just like that. And then it was like, oh, I can actually transform my thinking. And out of that, I restored relationships. Like I'd caught my mother, who was married to my stepfather, who was my abuser. I'd cut her out of my life for 18 years. That very day, I called her and said, hey, we don't have to talk about what did or didn't happen, because she had a different viewpoint about it than I did. You're my mom. I love you. Could we just have a relationship? And she cried. She's the best present ever.
Yeah.
And I had been married before and divorced, and I made my first husband wrong when really it was all my triggers from my abuse. And I actually divorced and found my second husband thinking he'd just be the right man. And of course he wasn't, because I was still getting triggered. But I called my ex-husband, who we had an adult child. We had a child who was an adult then, and said, hey, I made you all wrong about the divorce. And we have a son, and someday he'll get married, and he might have kids. And together with your wife and together with my husband, would you be interested in creating a peaceful, loving, harmonious family for our son and his future family? And they're like, yeah, we're all over it. And that's the type of work and the transformation that comes out of doing mindset work.
It's hard because there's a lot of the self-help gurus, we were talking about this before we started, who will say, choose joy, choose this, choose that, which seems kind of superficial to me, deep and superficial at the same time when there's true trauma that actually, especially from a young age, if abuse occurred, changed the way your brain developed and the way the synapses were able to connect and such. So we have to take a quick break. When we get back, I want to dig into that a little bit, and then you also have some steps that you can share with people to start the process of crawling out of kind of that muddy, dark space. So,
yeah, absolutely.
All right. Thank you, Cindy. We are going to take a quick break to honor our sponsors who believe in women and giving us a voice in our own platform, which I'm very appreciative of, and then we'll be right back.
Hi everyone, I'm weather forecaster and assignment anchor at Spokane Talks Online, Colin Pittman, and I am honored to be the host of the new program, Spokane's Youth Spotlight, brought to you by Spokane Talks Online and the Spokesman Review, where we are interviewing and getting to know outstanding youth in our community each month. If you'd like to nominate someone in our community that you think should be recognized, that is doing something great here in the region or has an amazing story, visit SpokaneTalksOnline.com or Spokesman.com and look under Youth Spotlight to nominate. And be sure to tune in each month as we find the best in the Inland Northwest.
Welcome to Spokane Talks. We have had the opportunity to be out here on the Z Nation set. But also we're excited at Spokane Talks. We have several shows, different genres, from real estate radio, Spokane Talks Live, Meet the Candidates, The Locker Room. We have several shows coming to you that can be found on all social media platforms, as well as coming up on Fox 28. Thank you so much. It's been a great opportunity being here at Z Nation set. Thank you.
Washington and Spokane voters are famously independent, voting for the person and not the party. Voters want to know the person behind the policy. Interested in learning more about your candidates? That's why we created Meet the Candidate. Join host Sulani Madsen as she interviews 2018 election candidates for local office on the experiences that have shaped their lives. Meet the Candidate is a nonpartisan community project brought to you by our friends at Greater Spokane Incorporated, Ponderosa Republican Women's Club, We Believe We Vote, and Better Spokane. All Meet the Candidate conversations are posted on our website, SpokaneTalksMedia.com.
All right. We are back at She Says. I'm Stephanie Regalado. Cindy Esch of Spark Mindset Coaching is here. We were just really digging in. I threw on the table and then said we had to go to a break about the self-help gurus and talk about choosing joy versus the true really digging in because there's been trauma in your brain due to significant things that happen throughout your life. So what do you advise people? Do you have people that come to you sometimes and you feel like maybe they need to seek counseling to dig into the traumatic effects of, how do you?
Yeah, if they're not really ready to examine their thinking and work with their thought work, then yeah.
Because thought work, the crazy thing about thought work is all thoughts are possible at all times. And so reining them in and having control of them, it takes such an act of attention and awareness. But then you can go about your daily life. And it's kind of like when I would get in the pattern of driving my kids to school every day, and then Saturday morning I was going to go downtown, and suddenly I was at the school. It just takes such it feels like an enormous amount of attention all of the time to override certain things.
Actually, no.
Oh, good. I'm glad we're here today.
So I actually teach my clients tools. And I make sure that they have those tools and learn to use and be proficient in those tools.
Like the rubber band that you snap?
No.
Have you ever heard of that one?
Yes, and no.
I was thinking I need a rubber band.
No.
Snap your, okay, good.
No.
So no snapping.
No. If you take 15 minutes a day, even if you just start with 5, and even if you don't have a specific situation that you want to write about, you can have a situation, or you can just ask your brain, what are you thinking? And you can just write everything down. And then you can go through and you can number those thoughts 1 through 10. 10 being, ooh, that one just bothers me more than anything else, and 1, no, not really. And then you can pick the thought that bothers you the most, and then you can ask yourself some questions like, is that true? Can I absolutely know that's true? What happens when I believe that thought? How do I feel when I believe that thought? How do I treat myself? How do I treat others when I believe that thought? And then you can actually go, well, if whatever that situation that thought came out of is still the same, because we can't change others and we can't change circumstances, right?
True.
But if I couldn't think that thought that's upsetting me, what thought would I like to think? How would I want to feel I'm sorry, let me back up. Who would I want to be? Who would I want to be if I couldn't think that thought?
Yeah.
And then how would I like to feel in order to be that person? And then what thought could I think in order to feel that way, in order to be that person? And then those thoughts that you write down, that you come up with at the end, you can actually put on a Post-it, stick on your bathroom mirror, your dashboard, your laptop. You can practice them. You can put them on the voicemail in your phone with great music and listen to them driving down the road. You will reprogram your brain. And that's just one tiny little tool of many that I teach my clients.
Have you heard of Danielle LaPorte's Desire Map?
No.
She's fabulous. I don't know if she's self-help, but she's kind of in that line, and she created the book, The Desire Map, and it trains you through that. You explore the different things that you've learned and felt all the way through, and then you end up with 3 to 5 core words of how to define yourself in a perfect world in your perfect sense, and then what it takes to believe in those and become that every single day. So it kind of gives you those bullet points to hang on to and sticky notes.
But the first thing we want to look at is, what is that negative or disempowering thought? That's why just choose joy or always think positive doesn't work, because it's a lot if this is a rusty bumper and there's rust here and we paint over it, the rust is just going to bleed through, the paint's going to fall off. We actually want to create space in our brain by finding that negative or disempowering thought and getting the impact that that's having in our life and on the results that we want to create, that it's keeping us from creating. And then find new thoughts and feelings to actually get the results that we want.
Yes. Are you familiar with Landmark?
Yes.
So have you gone through any of them?
Well, actually, I didn't know I could say the name, but that's where the guy said this much time when you were in this much time to your... Yes, that was my first experience with thought work.
Okay. So I went through a couple little things with Landmark. I took away a lot of great things from it, but one of my favorite things is the 2 circles, like the what happened and then everything you made it mean.
Everything you make it mean, yep.
And then you write all that down, get it all out of your head, and then you erase everything on the right side, because truly the only thing you know for sure is exactly what happened.
That's right.
And for some reason, humans' inclination, especially if maybe it's more for those who've experienced trauma, you tend to make meaning not positive.
Oh, no.
About yourself.
Everybody does that.
It doesn't matter if you've had trauma.
Doesn't matter.
What is it with humans and the inclination to want to...
So think about have you ever seen a baby? You have a grandchild.
I have babies, grandchildren and a grandchild, yes.
Okay. So how young is the youngest grandchild?
I have one and she's 2.5.
Okay. What's wrong with your 2.5-year-old grandchild?
0. Nothing at all.
She's just whole, complete, and perfect,
Yes.
isn't she?
Yeah.
She's just amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Look at your face. She's just amazing.
Yeah, she is.
And she came into the world that way.
Yeah.
Guess what? We all come into the world that
Right.
way.
Yeah.
Then something happens. It could be trauma. It could be
Yeah.
like abuse, right? But it could be that both of your parents work and you're waiting for mommy and daddy to come home because you want to bake cookies with mommy. And mommy's job has her on her feet all day long. And they come home and you go, mommy, daddy, mommy, let's bake cookies. And mommy's like, oh my gosh, it's 6 o'clock. I got to bake dinner. There's laundry to be done. And I got to help the other child with the homework. And mommy says, no, Stephanie, I'm not baking cookies tonight. Our minds are made to make meaning out of everything.
Yeah.
So then we make it mean something. Oh, she's helping my brother or sister with homework, but she won't bake cookies with me.
Yeah.
I must not be good enough. We make that meaning just like that. And then we carry that through in our adult life because we don't teach people how to examine and manage their thoughts.
Which I love so much, just throughout life, understanding that thoughts and emotions, etc., are actually totally in our control.
Absolutely.
Even being offended. Kent and I did a show on just the climate and divisive things and how to get along when you don't see the same way, and when people are offended, or so many people offended. And I really challenge people all the time to understand that you choose to be offended.
Yes.
It's you choose the whole act of it. That's not a verb an action that occurs.
Offended
to
is
you.
a feeling.
Right. It's something, and we choose all of those, no matter what's happened.
So feelings, something happens.
Yes.
That's the circumstance. The circumstance is always completely neutral. Everyone can agree upon it.
Yeah.
Like if we look at a thermometer and we see the temperature outside is.
Yeah.
Okay? We have a thought about the circumstance. That thought generates a feeling in our body that we actually experience as feeling in our body that we experience as a vibration. That feeling causes us to take an action or have an inaction, which creates a result, which may or may not be the result that we want. So the thing to realize is that all came from a thought. People say, they make me so mad. Nobody can make you mad. They did something, you had a thought about it that generated the feeling mad. And all thoughts are optional.
Yeah. That's true.
Yeah.
So let's dig into helping people. I got the little thing, we just have a few minutes left. Digging into, you have some steps that people can take, especially if or maybe only if they've experienced sexual abuse.
If they've, these are for anybody that's experienced any trauma, but these are steps that I use with my clients in the beginning who've experienced sexual abuse.
All right.
So step 1 is write down what happened to you, and that can feel really scary and really painful. Remember, feelings are only a vibration in your body. They will pass, and it's like we are draining an emotional wound. So write and write and write. Go ahead and cry.
Well, I felt a little emotional response to when you said he was asking you how many times did it happen, how many times a week, how long was it? Because you really have to go right back to those spaces.
Yeah.
And you suffer it once, you don't want to suffer it again, but like what you're saying is scrub it all the way back down to...
It's draining the swamp.
Draining it.
It's draining the wound. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so you just write and write and write and allow yourself to allow the feelings that come with it, the anger, the tears. It will pass, whatever it is. Just let it happen.
Yeah. Well, and I've heard, I'm going to derail this 100 times, but when children suffer through sexual abuse, that it gives them all sorts of, it's so confusing.
It's very confusing.
Because sometimes there's pleasure. There might be an aspect of pleasure involved, and I feel like this is a
We're
very
going to get to that
zone, and so that's confusing to them as
yeah.
well.
So we're going to get to that.
Okay. I'm gonna let you go.
So once they've written everything down,
Okay.
and just write until there's nothing
Drain
left to
the
write.
wound.
Drain the
Sounds
wound.
so gross, but so
drain the emotional wound.
good at the same time.
Then
Okay.
from everything that you wrote down, separate out the facts. Remember, facts are neutral. Facts are something everybody could agree upon. Think about it as something that could be proven in a court of law. Write out just the facts.
Okay.
Then write, what are you making the facts mean? Like what you talked about.
Yeah.
What is the story you're telling yourself, or maybe you're even telling others about the abuse? No judgment here. You're just writing.
Yeah.
Okay. Then how do the thoughts in your story feel? These are single feeling words. I feel betrayed. I feel abandoned. I feel unloved. I feel unsafe. I feel scared, whatever they are. Then what do you do when you feel this way? Because whenever we have an uncomfortable or unpleasant or negative feeling, we react in one of three ways. We either resist it, we push it down. We react like me going boom over the fertilizer spreader, or we figure out some way to actually deal with it. So like we overeat, we overdrink, we overspend, we gamble, all kinds of things that we do. So how is it you deal with things when you feel that way? And then ask yourself, how do you want to feel? We're going to go to imaginary land now. So we're kind of flipping the page. We've written down all of what was. And now we're going to flip the page, set that first page aside, and how do you really want to feel? And then what would you need to think or believe about the event in order to feel that way? So things like, I was 100% innocent, even if I complied and felt good during the abuse or accepted gifts for the abuse. I was totally innocent. I'm not alone. This is about sexual abuse, which happens, I'm not alone. This happens to 1 in 3 girls before they are 18.
Which is disgusting. Side note. No one that's going to watch this is going to be an abuser, but Jesus.
It's
Give me a
pretty
break.
horrific.
It's disgusting. Yeah.
I didn't do anything wrong. I just happened to be there. I was the object of abuse, not the abuse. My abuser's sickness and ick is theirs alone to deal with. I am not responsible. I was an innocent bystander caught in the crossfire. I release any and all self-punishment that I have been doing to myself. This may have touched and abused my body, but they cannot touch my soul, who I truly am. I am and always will be pure and innocent. I am whole, perfect, and complete just because I'm here. I am and always have been and always will be 100% lovable. So if you don't have your own thoughts, feel free to use these and to put them on those sticky notes and record them and practice them. And then the last question is, what have you learned from this event? And that can be hard for people who have been through something horrific to realize, but I would ask you to consider the possibility that you learned to keep yourself safe. You learned to deal with adversity. You learned courage. You learned strength. There's a lot of things that people learned. So write down what you learned. There are many, many steps to healing from abuse. This is just a first one, and I'm happy to work with anybody and do a free sample session for anybody that would like to explore this further.
I love the idea of digging down deep into it, because so much of, like you're saying, so much we do is painting over the rest and trying to choose joy and override it versus really digging down into drain the wound and find all those answers. So thank you for taking your life experiences and finding your niche. And your nonprofit, I wanted to say, it's Childhood Saved. You and your husband run a nonprofit. And it is you raise funds to support people who
want therapy. It's for survivors of childhood sexual abuse who want therapy, not coaching, but therapy to heal.
Yes. Having nothing to do with you.
Nothing to do with me.
We take
external. We take no money from this. We raise money, we give it away to provide therapy for survivors of childhood sexual abuse who otherwise cannot afford the help they need to heal.
And how do people find out more information about
childhoodsaved.org?
Oh, that's easy breezy. And then maybe after this goes on, when it's online, you can we can comment on there, do something. So people can be reminded of that. Thank you so much, Cindy, for sharing your work and all of this and entertaining all of my questions. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for watching She Says, and we'll see you next time.
She Says is produced in Spokane, Washington by SpokaneTalksOnline.com, which is solely responsible for its content.